Chapter 50. On top of the Zhanglan Lake, there were no waves as Li Fuchen quietly fished. As of today, Li Fuchen's soul spirit was already 90% green. Just 10% more and it would completely transform. Along with the transformation of his spirit soul, Li Fuchen's awareness was getting stronger. In the past, his awareness could only stay on the hook for less than 15 minutes, but now it had increased to 15 minutes. Voila! A normal treasure fish that weighed around 10 kilograms broke out of the water. At noon, Li Fuchen began to cultivate the Scarlet Fire technique. After cultivating the Scarlet Fire technique to the peak of the 4th rank, Li Fuchen could feel traces of blazing intent rushing through his body every time he revolved the Scarlet Fire technique. It was hard to imagine what would happen when the Scarlet Fire technique broke through to the 9th rank. On the first day, Li Fuchen caught a normal treasure fish that weighed over 10 kilograms. On the second day, he caught a normal treasure fish that weighed 20 kilograms. On the third day, not only did Li Fuchen catch a 10 kilograms first-tier treasure fish, he also broke through to the 5th rank of the Scarlet Fire technique. The 5th level of the Scarlet Fire technique had an obvious burning intent. Even though its power was not as strong as the 7th level of the Red Jade technique, the difference was not huge. It is said that the Scarlet Fire technique is the most domineering technique in the Zhanglan sect. It is indeed true. Li Fuchen couldn't help but praise in his heart when he punched at the void and the blazing fist wind distorted the air. As the days passed, Li Fuchen's harvest increased. On the 10th day, Li Fuchen's luck exploded and he caught a 2 to 5 kilograms second-tier treasure fish. On the 22nd day, Li Fuchen caught another second-tier treasure fish. On the 30th day, Li Fuchen hooked up a normal treasure fish that weighed over 100 kilograms. It was so strong that Li Fuchen had to expend a tremendous amount of effort to reel it in. On the 31st day, something big happened. After half a year, Li Fuchen's soul spirit finally evolved from the pale green class to the green class. The moment his spirit soul transformed, an indescribably wonderful feeling descended. Li Fuchen felt as though his spirit soul had learned how to breathe and was able to breathe freely. At the same time, a variety of martial arts flashed in Li Fuchen's mind, and in the blink of an eye, instantly evolved. The half-moon sword art had reached the acme of perfection. The tiger fang cross slash had reached perfection. The crushing stone palm had reached perfection. The clear breeze sword technique had reached perfection. Xiao Shang swordsmanship had reached perfection. The mountain-splitting palm had reached perfection. The red jade swordsmanship had reached the peak. The red jade palm had reached the pinnacle. This feeling is too wonderful, as if all the martial arts martial truth is integrated by Li Fuchen. At this moment, Li Fuchen knows that there is a deep connection between martial arts. Crackle! On Li Fuchen's soul spirit, traces of green lightning were scuttling. Every time it scuttled, Li Fuchen's thoughts became clear. The red jade technique intent rose from the 7th rank to the peak of the 7th rank, then the 7th rank extremity. Finally, a solidified flame was imprinted in Li Fuchen's mind. Li Fuchen didn't understand what this meant, but it shouldn't be a bad thing. It was a sleepless night. The next day, the sun rose. Li Fuchen sat cross-legged by the window, bathed in the golden sunlight and began to cultivate the Scarlet Fire technique. The Scarlet Fire technique, which was extremely difficult to cultivate in the past, was extremely smooth today. After circulating his true Qi 36 times, the Scarlet Fire technique's intent was the first to break through to the 6th level, followed by his cultivation technique. The 6th rank of the Scarlet Fire technique was too strong, it was no weaker than the 7th rank of the Red Jade technique. 2 weeks later, Li Fuchen persisted and pushed the Scarlet Fire technique to the 7th rank. 1 month later, it was at the 8th rank. Everything seemed to have returned to the time when he first obtained the golden amulet. At that time, Li Fuchen used a short period of time to push the Red Jade technique from the 3rd rank to the 6th rank. Snowflakes floated in the sky, it was now winter. Revolving the 8th rank Scarlet Fire technique with all his might, Li Fuchen's body emitted an invisible heat. When the snowflakes were 3 feet away from Li Fuchen, they melted. When they were 1 foot away from Li Fuchen, they evaporated into steam. Clenching his right fist, a pale red flame qi enveloped Li Fuchen's fist. It looked as though Li Fuchen's fist was on fire. Qi manifestation. After the Scarlet Fire technique broke through to the 8th rank, Li Fuchen was finally able to instantaneously manifest his qi. But he was only at the 7th level of the qi realm. From the density of his qi manifestation, it was much denser than Luo Kai, who was at the 8th level of the qi realm and at the 6th rank of the Iron Shell technique. Chasing after Zhou Huailong and Luo Zhongtian. Boom! Li Fuchen exerted all his strength to deliver a punch. The blazing fist force melted a large patch of snowflakes. Amongst the snowflakes, a trail was carved out. Golden amulet, where did you come from? Stopping revolving the Scarlet Fire technique, Li Fuchen's consciousness went into his mind. Within his chaotic mind, a green ball of light floated in the middle of the chaos. In the center of the ball of light was a simple golden amulet. The golden amulet was so mysterious. Not sure if it was Li Fuchen's illusion, but where the golden amulet came into contact with the green ball of light, there would be traces of pale blue threads appearing and fusing into the green ball of light. Could it be after the green soul spirit is the pale blue soul spirit? Li Fuchen took in a deep cold breath. Every time the soul spirit evolved, there would be a drastic change. After the green soul spirit would be the pale blue soul spirit, and after the pale blue soul spirit would be the blue soul spirit. As for after the blue soul spirit, Li Fuchen had a feeling that there would be a higher grade soul spirit. He couldn't imagine what would happen if the soul spirit was pale blue in color. Not to mention the blue soul spirit and the higher grade soul spirit. By then, he would probably be able to cultivate the Scarlet Fire technique to the highest rank within 2 hours. Forcefully letting out a breath, Li Fuchen thought to himself, even though I have the golden amulet, I cannot slack off. The golden amulet has greatly increased my perception, but I still have to work hard in other areas. The snow was getting heavier, but the Tsanglan Lake didn't show any signs of freezing. It was said that the Tsanglan Lake never froze. There was a year when the Tsanglan region experienced a snowstorm, but the Tsanglan Lake didn't even freeze. Quietly fishing, Li Fuchen's heart gradually calmed down and wasn't as turbulent as before. Now that his soul spirit was at the green class, Li Fuchen's consciousness could stay on the hook for 15 minutes, which doubled the time. Don't underestimate the additional 15 minutes. There were many times when Li Fuchen's consciousness was about to dissipate, he would hastily catch a treasure fish and didn't have the time to choose a better one. In addition, the range of his consciousness's perception was also doubled. Previously in the water, it was only 10 meters, but now it was 15 meters. Just as his consciousness was about to dissipate, Li Fuchen finally found a target. A first-tier treasure fish that was at least a few dozen kilograms. After catching so many treasure fish, Li Fuchen realized that a normal treasure fish, according to its weight, could burst out with 20 kilograms of strength for every kg. A first-tier treasure fish could burst out with 50 kilograms of strength for every kg. This first-tier treasure fish was at least a few dozen kilograms and had at least 2,000 to 3,000 kilograms of strength in the water. If it was the previous Li Fuchen, he wouldn't have been able to catch it. Chapter 51. Rumble. Waves splashed everywhere, and a half-meter-long rainbow fish broke through the waves. Under the sunlight, it shone with a myriad of colors, as if it was a fish carved out of rainbow jade. What a big first-tier treasure fish! The outer sect disciples who were on the same fishing platform as Li Fuchen exclaimed. They had been at the Tsanglan sect for many years and had never seen a half-meter-long first-tier treasure fish. First-tier treasure fish cost 100 contribution points per kg. Their skin and flesh were tougher and they weighed at least 40 to 50 kilograms. That was 4,000 to 5,000 contribution points. As for this, Li Fuchen didn't feel anything. He had caught 2 second-tier treasure fish previously. Second-tier treasure fish cost 1,000 contribution points per kg, so 4 kilograms was equivalent to this first-tier treasure fish. In the blink of an eye, another half a month passed. Li Fuchen had been fishing at Tsanglan Lake for 3 months now. In these 3 months, Li Fuchen caught 69 normal, 15 first-tier, and 3 second-tier treasure fish. It's time to return. Li Fuchen was satisfied with his harvest this time. Finding the snow silver ore at Kengchang Mountain was luck. But fishing at Songlan Lake was all about skill. This skill had to be put to good use, to not let his status as a Songlan sect disciple go to waste. Cousin, that's him. From what I know, he got at least a few tens of thousands of contribution points from both the Songlan Lake and the Or Mountain. The tall youth pointed at Li Fuchen and spoke to the determined youth beside him. Li Fuchen immediately recognized the tall youth. 3 months ago, before he beat up Zhou Huailong and Luo Zhongtian, he beat up another group of outer sect disciples. The leader of the group was this tall youth, who seemed to be called Sun Yubao. So you are Li Fuchen? The resolute youth sized up Li Fuchen and frowned slightly. Li Fuchen said indifferently, "Before I get angry, I advise all of you to get lost." He had enough of everyone treating him like a fat sheep. He wasn't afraid of trouble, but that didn't mean he could spend all his time dealing with them. Interesting, this is the first time someone spoke to me, Wang Hu, in such a manner. Wang Hu felt that Li Fuchen wasn't someone to be trifled with. Li Fuchen seemed to be stronger than what Sun Yubao described. But he was still one of the top 500 outer sect disciples. Even if he was ranked last, he wasn't someone Zhou Huailong or Luo Zhongtian could compare to. Cut the crap, make your move. Li Fuchen couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with the opposition. Cousin brother, teach him a lesson. Sun Yubao glared at Li Fuchen. Smiling, Wang Hu's eyes gradually sharpened. At the same time, a powerful aura spread out from his body. Both of Wang Hu's hands were wrapped in a layer of light green true qi, giving off a feeling of being as heavy as wood. Evergreen technique, one of the Azure Water sect's entry techniques. Cultivating this technique not only allowed one to recover quickly, but their strength was also quite heavy. When fighting with someone who cultivated the evergreen art, if one couldn't defeat the other party in a short period of time, it would be dangerous if the battle dragged on. Heavy wood fist. Wang Hu used his full strength right off the bat. He blasted a high-tier, yellow-class fist art, heavy wood fist at Li Fuchen with a whistling chi force. It was a pity, it was all in vain. With the Scarlet Fire technique at the 8th rank, Li Fuchen's ability almost doubled. Gently reaching out with his left hand as if grabbing a child's fist, Li Fuchen's right fist greeted Wang Hu's face with lightning speed. Bang! Blood splattered. Wang Hu was stunned. He saw stars in front of his eyes and couldn't see anything. Li Fuchen didn't stop and followed up with another punch on Wang Hu's face. He then sent Wang Hu flying a dozen meters away with a kick and fainted. Walking step by step to the front of Sun Yubao, Li Fuchen said, "If you provoke me again, I will make you pay 10 times the price." Finishing his sentence, Li Fuchen sent a punch to Sun Yubao's stomach, spitting out his overnight meal and gastric juices. "You're on your own." Li Fuchen carried the fish basket and left. Looking at Li Fuchen's departing back, Sun Yubao's eyes were filled with fear. Too horrifying. Was he still human? His cousin was one of the outer sect's top 500 disciples. But he was crushed just like that without any chance to retaliate. Songlan Sect's Mission Hall. The mission elder felt that all the surprises he had for the past half a year were all used on Li Fuchen. Li Fuchen's harvest this time was a total of 55,000 contribution points. This was a humongous amount. Even an outer sect elder would need a few years to gather such a sum, but Li Fuchen only took a few months. Calming down the raging emotions in his heart, the mission elder started to feel jealous of Li Fuchen. If only he had this many contribution points, it would be enough to bring his ability to the next level. But there were no ifs. With the addition of 36,800 contribution points, Li Fuchen now had a total of 91,800 contribution points. After redeeming 300 body tempering pills, he was left with 16,800 contribution points. Body refinement techniques aren't meant for humans to cultivate. The requirement for resources is too high. Li Fuchen suspected that if he was at the Li clan, even with the Li clan's wealth, it would still be a waste for him to cultivate the Crimson Battle form to completion. After all, body tempering pills cost 500 gold coins each. Up till now, with the addition of the 300 body tempering pills, he had redeemed a total of 500 body tempering pills. That was 250,000 gold coins. Not in a rush to return to his courtyard to cultivate the Crimson Battle form, Li Fuchen once again went to the Martial Hall to redeem a peak-tier, yellow-class sword art. Tripart sword style. Disorder split wind sword style. Snake eye sword style. Squall swift sword style. Blood drain sword style. Dripping sword style. Golden snake sword style. Soul chasing sword style. Soaring dragon sword style. Petal chasing butterfly sword style. Devil cloud sword style. Scarlet fire sword style. Raging wave sword style. Flowing cloud sword style. After going through all the sword art manuals, Li Fuchen finally chose the Scarlet Fire sword style. The Scarlet Fire sword style was a sword art that complemented the Scarlet Fire technique. It might only be considered a mid-tier sword art by itself, but when combined with the Scarlet Fire technique, it was able to burst out 120% of its power. The Scarlet Fire sword style only cost Li Fuchen 1,300 contribution points. As for the remaining 15,500 contribution points, Li Fuchen decided to keep it for now. Returning to his courtyard, Li Fuchen went into seclusion. The first rank of the Crimson Battle form required one to beat the body with a rod. The second rank required one to boil the body. The third rank didn't require any of these processes and only required body tempering pills to cultivate. It might look easy, but it wasn't easy to cultivate. The third rank's qi circulation method was unique. Every time the qi was circulated, it felt as though his flesh and bones were being pierced by needles or bitten by ants. The soreness was indescribable. Li Fuchen clenched his teeth and persevered with his cultivation. As the body tempering pills were consumed one by one, Li Fuchen felt his flesh and bones getting tighter. With a flick of his finger, a strong wind like an arrow could easily shatter a teacup from a few feet away. But there were plenty of obstacles for the third rank. Sometimes, as he was cultivating, Li Fuchen's abdomen would suddenly expand, as though he was 6 months pregnant. Sometimes, his vision would turn black and he would lose his sight. Sometimes, it was as though thunder was rumbling in his ears. Li Fuchen knew that this was because his body refinement technique cultivation speed was too fast. The body needed time to adapt. Without this process, the body would occasionally lose control. The solution to this problem was simple, and that was to speed up the adaptation process. Chapter 52. Improving one's qi circulation wasn't a joke. It required a deep understanding of one's own body and a strong perception. Without a deep understanding of one's body, problems would easily arise. If one's perception wasn't strong enough, problems would also arise when improving the qi circulation. If Li Fuchen was to slow down, he wouldn't have to improve the qi circulation. But he didn't want to slow down. Body refinement techniques vary from person to person. With some slight modifications, there shouldn't be any problems. On this day, Li Fuchen sat in the yard and scanned his body with his powerful awareness. It was said that only Heaven Realm martial artists knew how to use their awareness. Those below the Heaven Realm only had awareness, but didn't know how to use it. Of course, the main reason was that those below the Heaven Realm didn't have a strong enough awareness. Scanning his body over and over again, Li Fuchen had a more detailed understanding of his body. Every meridian and acupoint that his awareness could detect, Li Fuchen could clearly see them all. So these acupoints differ from person to person. Different people have different locations. No wonder when I circulate my qi, there would always be blockages which would affect my cultivation. Spending a few days, Li Fuchen modified his qi circulation technique. Actually, it wasn't considered a modification. 99% of the technique was still the same, but Li Fuchen made some adjustments based on his own body. With the adjustment of the qi circulation technique completed, Li Fuchen's qi circulation was unobstructed and his body didn't lose control again. 4,000 kilograms. 4,200 kilograms. 4,500 kilograms. Li Fuchen's physical strength was changing every day. The density of his skin was also changing every day. Previously, Li Fuchen was around 130 kilograms. Now he was 140 kilograms. The crucial point was that with a height of 1 7 meters and 140 kilograms, Li Fuchen didn't look too strong. At a glance, he was at most 130 kilograms. 4,800 kilograms. 5,000 kilograms. When there were only 20 body-tempering pills left, Li Fuchen's Crimson Battle form was finally at the completion stage. The completion stage of the Crimson Battle form was incomparably strong. Not only was the density of the skin, but the toughness of the skin was also greatly increased. Clang. Li Fuchen drew his steel sword and cleaved at his body. Li Fuchen used around 3,000 kilograms of strength in this cleave. The sharp blade didn't cut through his skin. Increasing his strength to 4,000 kilograms, he was still unscathed. After increasing to 5,000 kilograms, a shallow wound finally appeared on Li Fuchen's body. As soon as the wound appeared, it closed up. Instead of slashing, Li Fuchen used thrusts. Li Fuchen found that 4,000 kilograms of force was enough to pierce through his skin. Taking a deep breath, Li Fuchen revolved the 8th rank Scarlet Fire technique. A surging scarlet fire chi covered his entire body. Clang. Li Fuchen ruthlessly cleaved at his body. The strength of this sword strike was 6,000 pounds. But other than a white mark, there was nothing left on his body. 7,000 jin. 8,000 jin. Only after increasing his strength to 8,000 kilograms did Li Fuchen slash open the skin and flesh, causing traces of blood to spurt out. As expected of the Crimson Battle form, although it is not really invulnerable, but at the mortal realm, it is not an exaggeration to say that it is invulnerable. 8,000 pounds of strength was already at the peak of the mortal realm. Zhou Huilong and Luo Zhongtian's strength was around 6,000 kilograms, and Wang Hu's was around 7,000 kilograms. Li Fuchen estimated that he could exert more than 10,000 kilograms of force. The so-called force path refers to the amount of force that can be exerted. Physical strength, cultivation, techniques, and martial arts will all affect the force path. 10,000 kilograms of force can send an object that weighs 10,000 kilograms flying for a certain distance. Did you hear? Li Fuchen defeated Wang Hu. Is that for real? Wang Hu is one of the top 500 disciples. Even though he is at the bottom, he is still not someone that Zhou Huilong and Luo Zhongtian can compare to. I suspect it is fake too. According to those who saw it with their own eyes, Li Fuchen easily crushed Wang Hu. Fake, it must be fake. How can a person improve so quickly? I don't believe it. In just a few days, the news of Li Fuchen defeating Wang Hu spread throughout the outer sect. But everyone's first reaction was disbelief. Of course, there was a minority that believed it. After all, some things wouldn't come out of nowhere. Since it was spread, it had some degree of credibility. By the time Li Fuchen completed the Crimson Battle form and walked out of his courtyard, the news had already spread like wildfire. Those who met him along the way looked at him with a strange gaze. Li Fuchen, when you were in Yunwu City, did you offend Shintu Liang? A figure slowly walked over. It was Shintu Ju. The current Shintu Ju was already at the 7th level of the Qi realm. What is it? Li Fuchen raised an eyebrow. I need a large amount of body-tempering pills. You just need to give me 50 and this debt will be written off. Shintu Ju said. Even though Li Fuchen was doing well in the outer sect, but compared to his Shintu clan, it wasn't even worth mentioning. Li Fuchen laughed. You think I will give it to you? You dare to defy my Shintu clan? Shintu Ju replied with dissatisfaction. I am now an outer sect disciple of the Zhanglan sect, and a first-grade outer sect disciple at that. What qualifications do you have to speak to me in such a manner? Finishing his sentence, Li Fuchen left. Li Fuchen, a moment of pride doesn't mean anything. Once you reach the origin realm, the importance of your bone frame will slowly show itself. By then, with your normal bone frame, you will definitely be at the bottom. Shintu Ju forcefully suppressed his anger. The reason why he needed the body-tempering pills was because he had just redeemed the iron-clothed shirt manual. But to cultivate the iron-clothed shirt, it required a large amount of body-tempering pills. If he relied on himself to slowly cultivate, who knows how long it would take for him to succeed. Li Fuchen, who was already far away, didn't put Shintu Ju's words to heart. Others might not know, but he knew his own condition. Maybe his bone frame was indeed lacking, but if his perception was heaven-defying, nothing would be an obstacle. Arriving at the third floor of the dining hall, Li Fuchen ordered a high-class meal. Ever since he started cultivating the Crimson Battle form, Li Fuchen no longer ate a single silver coin nutritious meal, but a single gold coin high-class meal. The high-class meal was made from demonic beast meat. After cleansing the demonic qi, demonic beast meat was extremely chewy. After eating it, one wouldn't feel hungry easily and could replenish one's stamina and energy. The vegetables were specially grown by the Zhanglan sect. Although they were called vegetables, they were no different from herbs, as they contained many of the essences required by the human body. Finding a place to sit down, Li Fuchen ate in a refined manner. Dense footsteps could be heard as a group of people came from the second floor to the third floor. Li Fuchen lifted his head and couldn't help but narrow his eyes. It was Guan Shui. Wearing the ordinary outer sect disciple attire, she stood out from the crowd and had an elegant demeanor. Her slightly slender eyes carried a trace of arrogance. Beside her were two equally attractive young ladies. Chapter 53. It was obvious that Guan Shui saw Li Fuchen too. The current Li Fuchen was completely different from the one Guan Shui remembered. Following the transformation of his soul spirit and the completion of the Crimson Battle form, Li Fuchen's aura wasn't inferior to anyone and had his own uniqueness. From afar he looked like a star. Even though he wasn't as dazzling as the sun, he had a deep and unfathomable aura. His body wasn't strong, but it exuded an iron-blooded aura that couldn't be ignored. When did the outer sect have such a charismatic disciple? The phoenix-eyed disciple beside Guan Shui had a sparkle in her eyes. The number of male disciples in the outer sect that could make her eyes sparkle was less than 5. The rest were all prodigies of the outer sect. Senior Guan Shui, it's Li Fuchen. The delicate female disciple beside Guan Shui couldn't help but say. Guan Shui nodded and walked towards Li Fuchen. Long time no see. Arriving at the table in front of Li Fuchen, Guan Shui stroked the hair on her forehead and spoke. Yes. Li Fuchen didn't put down his chopsticks and nodded to Guan Shui. Guan Shui frowned. Had it been anyone else, they would have stood up. About the engagement, I'm sorry. Guan Shui replied. Li Fuchen laughed. It is a good thing that it is dissolved. You can relax and so can I. I hope you really think so. Guan Shui sized up Li Fuchen, trying to see through his eyes. A pity. His eyes were deep and dark, without any emotions. Pursing her lips, Guan Shui said, Your method of obtaining contribution points has already attracted the attention of many people, especially those in the top 500 of the outer sect. You better pay attention. If you really can't solve it, you can look for me. Regarding the annulment of the engagement, it was her Guan clan who was in the wrong. She hoped to make up for it as it would clear her mind and be beneficial to her future cultivation. Thank you for your kindness, but I can resolve it myself. Li Fuchen rejected her good intentions. The phoenix-eyed disciple interrupted, Li Fuchen, right? Don't be stubborn. Although I don't know how you defeated Wang Hu is only ranked 485 out of the top 500 disciples. Senior sister is untalented, ranked 452 out of the top 500 disciples. But compared to junior sister Guan Shui, I'm still far from being ranked 366. She found Li Fuchen rather pleasing to the eye. Of course, it was merely pleasing to the eye, everything still depended on one's potential. Thank you. I've finished eating. You guys take your time. I'll take my leave first. Li Fuchen didn't want to be entangled with these people. He put down his chopsticks and left. This fellow. The female disciple with phoenix eyes frowned. Guan Shui said, Forget it, he has always been like this. It seems that you know him quite well? The female disciple with phoenix eyes giggled. Guan Shui's expression was cold as she said, So what if we understand him? He is destined to be someone from a different world from us. His bone frame is just a normal bone frame. Normal bone frame? The pretty female disciple exclaimed in shock. The three of them all had extraordinary bone frames, and Guan Shui had the best bone frame as she was a 4-star extraordinary bone frame. which was why they were so close to each other. Birds of a feather flock together. This phrase was applicable at all times. Impossible. How can a normal bone frame improve so quickly? The female disciple with phoenix eyes had a face of disbelief. Guan Shui said, something must have happened to his body that caused his perception to be abnormally high. But unless he obtained an earth-class herb, it is impossible for his bone frame to have any changes. Yellow-class herbs were just normal herbs. Mystic-class herbs already contain the mysteries of heaven and earth. But to change a person's bone frame, it wasn't enough. Earth-class herbs were required. But earth-class herbs were hard to come by. Even for a sect, it would be extremely difficult to obtain one. There were many types of earth-class herbs, but herbs that could change one's bone frame were extremely rare. A high perception would at most reach the earth realm. To break through to the heaven realm, just having perception isn't enough. The female disciple with phoenix eyes said. The pretty female disciple nodded. On the way back, Li Fuchen saw He Ping. But He Ping seemed to be in some trouble as he was surrounded by a few people. Junior apprentice brother He Ping, don't be so shameless. Senior apprentice brother Fong has invited you to become his follower. It's your honor. The fierce-looking young man put his hand on He Ping's shoulder and said in a vicious tone. He Ping mocked, follower is just a formality. His true purpose is to have me contribute pills to him. The Zhonglan sect had many disciples and factions. Strong disciples would have many followers, and these followers would offer a certain amount of pills every month. With these pills, the stronger the disciple, the stronger the faction. But not everyone had the qualifications to create their own faction. Once a faction was established, it would face challenges from other factions. Once defeated, the faction would immediately collapse. To maintain a faction, one's personal ability must be absolutely strong. If one's personal ability wasn't strong enough, others wouldn't be willing to submit to you. Apart from that, it would be even better if you had a strong background. For example, if you had a strong inner sect disciple backing you, others wouldn't dare to touch you. Apart from that, having a shocking potential was also a huge deterrent. If you were a 4-star bone frame, then other than 4-star bone frames, no one would dare to touch you. But you don't agree? I advise you to consider carefully. If you reject Fong Shixiang, you will never have a day of peace. The fierce-looking youth threatened. He Ping replied, sorry, I will not agree. Refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. I'll teach you a lesson today. The fierce-looking youth used his strength and locked onto He Ping's shoulder. Crunch crunch. The fierce-looking youth was at the 8th level of the Qi realm, while He Ping was only at the 7th level. Under the strength of his 5 fingers, He Ping broke out in cold sweat and couldn't even struggle free. Shaking his head, Li Fuchen walked over. Hey, you guys stop before you go too far. Li Fuchen's voice traveled into the ears of everyone present. Kitor, do you want to die? A long-faced youth beside the fierce-looking youth spoke fiercely. It's Li Fuchen. One of the youths recognized Li Fuchen. Hearing the response, the fierce-looking youth released his hand and turned to Li Fuchen. Li Fuchen, right? I advise you to stay out of this matter. It was impossible for him not to know of Li Fuchen's infamy. Without an expert around, he didn't dare to challenge Li Fuchen. Get lost. I don't want to repeat myself. Li Fuchen's expression was indifferent. The long-faced youth was flustered. Let's go. Li Fuchen, you will regret this. The fierce-looking youth was rather calm as he led the group away. Rubbing his shoulder, He Ping said, you shouldn't have stood up for me. Li Fuchen laughed. Why didn't I agree with them? He Ping replied helplessly, becoming the follower of that Fong Shixiang may have saved me a lot of trouble, but it would also slow down my progress. I see. I heard that there are factions in the outer sect that protect the weak. You should join them. Li Fuchen said. What about you? He Ping originally didn't want to join any faction, but now it seems like he had no choice. I am used to being alone. Li Fuchen shook his head. He Ping frowned. That Fong Shixiang isn't a normal person. He is one of the 10 prodigies of the outer sect and is ranked in the top 10 of the top 500 disciples. His potential is astounding. He will definitely find trouble with you. Chapter 54. With the Scarlet Fire technique at the 8th rank, Li Fuchen's cultivation speed increased tremendously. The 6th rank of the Scarlet Fire technique was already equivalent to the 7th rank of the Red Jade technique. Peak of the 7th level of the Qi realm. I should be able to break through to the 8th level in another month. The winter sun shone on the body, giving off a warm feeling. Li Fuchen slowly opened his eyes on the fake mountain in the courtyard. The Qi realm was getting harder and harder to break through, but Li Fuchen's perception was too heaven-defying. He forcefully cultivated the Scarlet Fire technique to the 8th rank. To him, the further he progressed, the easier it was to break through, because he would be able to improve his technique to a higher rank. Swish, swish, swish. In the first-grade outer sect disciple region, there was a small lake. This lake separated the first-grade outer sect disciple region into 4 smaller regions. On the sparkling lake, a figure was sprinting as though he was running on flat ground. The sprinter had long and powerful legs, his feet were wrapped in a layer of pale blue qi. Every time he stepped on the surface of the lake, the qi was like cotton candy, flattened and bounced up. So, as he neared the shore, the sprinter bounced up and landed lightly on the ground. It should be this region. The youth had long legs, which took up 60% of his height. His narrow eyes were filled with arrogance. In just a short moment, the youth found Li Fuchen's courtyard. Swish. With a flash, the youth stood on top of the courtyard wall. In the courtyard, Li Fuchen was practicing his sword arts. Sensing the commotion, he lifted his head. Their eyes met in an instant, and there seemed to be invisible electric sparks flashing in the void. Such a strong gaze. The arrogant youth squinted his eyes. Quite a strong qi presence. Li Fuchen was afraid of small troubles, but if the opponent was strong, he would be interested in playing with them. This youth's qi presence was twice as strong as Wang Hu's. Among the top 500 disciples, he would probably be in the top 400 or even top 300. You are Li Fuchen? The youth asked. That's right. Li Fuchen sheathed his wooden sword. I am Ye Ming, let's have a spar. No reason because you offended Fang Shixiang. I see. Seems like this Nye Ming was that so-called Fang Shixiang's underling. Not just any underling but one of his experts. This is not the place to fight. You and I will go outside. Pushing open the courtyard door, Li Fuchen came to the open space outside the courtyard. On the spacious ground, the two of them stood 10 meters apart. What's your ranking among the top 500 disciples? Li Fuchen carefully sized up Nye Ming. Nye Ming's legs were much longer than the average person and his thighs were very strong, giving off a feeling of agility like the wind and speed like thunder. Untalented, 272. Nye Ming was very proud. The outer sect top 500, each one more abnormal than the other. Many of them had been stuck at the 9th level of the Qi realm for a year or two. These people had accumulated a lot of experience, and their martial arts had basically reached the 8th or 9th level. Adding on their other advantages, they could easily crush more than 90% of the outer sect disciples in the 9th level of the Qi realm. 272? This ranking was much higher than Guan Xue's. Of course, he couldn't rule out the possibility that Guan Xue hadn't revealed her true strength yet. Make your move. Li Fuchen didn't draw his sword. If he did, even if he went easy, his opponent wouldn't be able to withstand more than a few slashes. He wanted to know the ability of the top 300 outer sect top 500 disciples. Interesting. Be careful. Nye Ming's body flashed, both legs attacking Li Fuchen like a torrential storm. Yellow class, high-tier kick art, cloud-shifting kick. Li Fuchen grinned and used both his legs to welcome the attack like a violent storm. Yellow class, mid-tier kick art, cyclone kick. Crackle crackle. In just a few breaths, the two of them had exchanged countless kicks. Within a radius of a few meters, it was filled with the sound of qi explosions. Nye Ming's cultivation was at the 9th level of the qi realm. His entry technique, White Wave technique, was at the 8th rank. With the addition of his yellow class, high-tier kick art, he should have surpassed Li Fuchen in every aspect. But Li Fuchen's entry technique, Scarlet Fire technique, was also at the 8th rank. The mid-tier, yellow class, cyclone kick might not be as high as his opponent's cloud-shifting kick. But Li Fuchen's own cultivation level was higher. He had already cultivated the cyclone kick to the trance stage. Apart from that, Li Fuchen's physical strength was at an astonishing 5,000 kilograms. Not only did it make up for his disadvantage in cultivation, it actually exceeded his opponent's. Sure enough, the rumors say that his physical strength is astounding. When I exchanged kicks with him earlier, that hard feeling almost scattered my chi. Nie Ming's expression turned serious. Before coming here, he didn't put Li Fuchen in his eyes and thought that with his ability, it would be easy to defeat him. But now, he didn't think so. What body refinement technique are you cultivating? Nie Ming asked. He too cultivated a body refinement technique, but it was just a normal golden bell canopy, which was slightly stronger than the iron-clothed shirt. Stronger body refinement techniques were too difficult to cultivate. He didn't intend to waste a large amount of time and resources on a body refinement technique. Crimson battle form. Li Fuchen didn't intend to hide it and replied. What? You actually cultivated the crimson battle form? This guy. Nie Ming was shocked. The crimson battle form was famous for its difficulty. Among the outer sect disciples, only one had successfully cultivated the crimson battle form. The rest had either given up or were still in the process of trying. According to the records, only one outer sect disciple would successfully cultivate the crimson battle form every 5 years. Li Fuchen, let's fight on the water. Nie Ming stomped on the ground and like a rock spreading its wings, he skimmed into the lake. On land, he wasn't certain he could defeat Li Fuchen. But on the water, he had a chance. This was something he didn't expect before he came. Sure thing. Li Fuchen's feet were wrapped in a layer of pale red qi. With a leap, he also skimmed into the lake. Splash, 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 splash. The two of them were like water spiders, gliding freely on the surface of the lake. This guy's perception is too high. He can actually manifest qi. Nie Ming's mouth twitched. Manifesting qi from the limbs was the easiest. Looking at the concentration of qi on Li Fuchen's feet, his entry technique was at least at the 8th rank. This can no longer be described as having a high perception. Sick. This was Nie Ming's only thought. Look, there's a battle on the lake. There were a few hundred first-grade outer sect disciples residing in the first-grade outer sect area. Due to the small size of the lake, many of them witnessed the battle on the lake. They couldn't resist their curiosity and jumped into the lake. Using the manifestation of qi, they easily stood on the surface of the water. It's Nie Ming, he is one of the 7 experts under Fong Lai Hai. Not bad, Nie Ming is ranked 5th amongst the 7 experts. His ability is pretty good. I wonder who his opponent is. Why haven't I seen him before? I know who he is. His name is Li Fuchen, the one who has been the talk of the town recently. So it's him. I heard it's easy for him to earn contribution points. I wonder if it's true. Chapter 55. Toppling mountains and overturning seas. The cloud-shifting leg was stronger in water. The white wave technique was also stronger in water. On the lake, Nie Ming stomped on the surface of the lake. Under the cover of the crystal waves, Nie Ming swept his leg at Li Fuchen. This kick was extremely ferocious. The crystal waves were swept away by the leg force, increasing the power of the leg force. Nie Ming is really smart. Who doesn't know that in places with water, the white wave technique and cloud-expelling kick can display greater power? Among the spectators, a tall youth with a righteous face shook his head and said with a smile. The youth beside him said, Li Fuchen can only blame himself for being too stupid to actually fight with Nie Ming on the lake. They all acknowledged Li Fuchen's ability. At the Qi realm, bone frame didn't have much of an impact. Only at the origin realm did the importance of the bone frame become apparent. Even though Li Fuchen's bone frame wasn't good, but his perception was high. This allowed him to have the ability to shake the heavens and earth at the Qi realm. His improvement speed was comparable to the 10 prodigies. Gale flash. Li Fuchen's figure suddenly became blurry. On the lake, it was as though there was a condensed gale sweeping across. Ming's leg shadow couldn't even touch Li Fuchen. The Gale Flash was the first move of the Cyclone Kick style. It focused on footwork and was the entry-level quintessence of the Cyclone Kick style. Mastering this move would allow one to be as fast as the wind. Swish, 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 swish. On the lake, the waves undulated. Li Fuchen flashed around Ming at high speed, his movements unpredictable. Suddenly appearing behind Ming, Li Fuchen sent a palm strike, using the most ordinary stone-shattering palm. With the Cyclone Kick and stone-shattering palm at the trance stage, Li Fuchen's moves were as fast as lightning, without any gaps. At the crucial moment, Ming's body spun. His palms were like iron bars, blocking Li Fuchen's stone-shattering palm. With a boom, the surface of the lake exploded into a ball of water. Ming's figure retreated rapidly. The lake water was up to his calves. Li Fuchen took 7 to 8 steps back, as though it was light. Swish, 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 swish. Just as Ming thought he was safe, Li Fuchen's hands suddenly sucked the water into his palms and shot it at Ming like a concealed weapon. Ming's old force was used up and he had no choice but to draw his wooden sword. Papa, balls of water the size of eggs were shattered one after another, and the sword dance was watertight. I have to admit that your ability is much stronger than I imagined. But Ming will not allow myself to lose. Using strength from his legs, Ming soared into the sky and slashed at Li Fuchen. This sword was like rippling water, and the sword's momentum covered an extremely wide area. Combined with the splashes of water that flew into the air, it gave people the illusion that the wind and rain were coming together, and it was unstoppable. Condense! Li Fuchen wasn't arrogant. He drew his wooden sword and executed the touch of ruby jade. The wooden sword in Li Fuchen's hand drew a semicircle in midair. The water splashes that filled the sky seemed to be drawn by an invisible force and converged around Li Fuchen's wooden sword. Accompanied by Li Fuchen's sword presence and blazing sword force, it suddenly turned into a pale red mist that covered the sky and attacked at Ming. An eye for an eye. Not good. Ming was shocked. The light red mist had blocked his vision, causing him to be blinded. The only thing he could do was to retreat with all his might. Once he was enveloped by the light red mist, he would have no chance to turn the situation around. Guan Shui shimmy, it seems we have underestimated him. No wonder he was so confident. On the other side of the lake, Guan Shui, the phoenix-eyed female disciple, and the delicate female disciple had arrived. The three of them were in deep thought. The one who spoke was the phoenix-eyed female disciple. Guan Shui replied, "Yes, it seems like there will be some interaction between me and him. I hope it won't be too deep." Even though she was shocked by Li Fuchen's ability, she didn't lose her composure. This was because she hid her true ability well. After consuming the white wave pill, her white wave technique had already broken through to the 8th rank. Because she had been at the Zhanglan sect for a full year, she was unable to break through to the 9th rank. Hence, she could only claim the 30,000 contribution points reward. If it was only the 8th rank of the white wave technique, she would only be ranked 300 or 400 among the top 500 outer sect disciples. But the 4-star soft water bone frame had a huge amplification effect on the white wave technique. Her ability wasn't as simple as it looked. After witnessing Ming's battle, she was 100% sure she could win. As compared to her talent in techniques, her talent in sword arts was much more outstanding. Guan Shui Shiji, was he really like what you described him to be in the past? The delicate female disciple couldn't help but ask. These few days, Guan Shui had told them about Li Fuchen. The Li Fuchen of the past had some perception, but it wasn't this insane. But the current Li Fuchen was comparable to the 10 prodigies. He might even be superior. It wasn't like they didn't know that some normal bone frames could ignore the limitations of the bone frame and break through to the earth realm. These people usually had high perception and were comparable to 3-star bone frames. But they were only comparable to 3-star bone frames. Li Fuchen's perception was comparable to 4-star bone frames. No, many 4-star bone frames didn't even have the perception of Li Fuchen. What the three of them didn't know was that before his soul spirit turned green, Li Fuchen's perception was already comparable to a 4-star bone frame. The current Li Fuchen had a perception that was at least 5-star bone frame, maybe even higher. Guan Shui didn't say anything. She had some doubts. Was this really Li Fuchen? This Nieming is rather strong. A pity that I am stronger. Li Fuchen's ability rose so quickly that he didn't even know what level he was at. To deal with Nieming, he only used about 50% of his ability. Except for cultivation level and technique rank, he was able to crush Nieming in any aspect. Tiger Fang Cross Slash. The simple Tiger Fang Cross Slash was like a god in the hands of Li Fuchen. The pale red cross slash flashed and the pale red mist was split open. Nieming retreated again and again, his blood boiling. This won't do, I will definitely lose if this carries on. I have no choice but to use this move. Nieming gritted his teeth and revolved the white wave technique to the limit. An extremely viscous pale blue qi flowed from his right arm to the wooden sword. The next moment, the wooden sword emitted a faint sound of waves. The water around the wooden sword was also absorbed, increasing its prowess. Raging waves rise. Taking a deep breath, Nieming swept his sword horizontally. The sound of waves was vast and mighty, and the sword presence was abundant. Peak tier, yellow class sword art, raging wave sword style. Looking at the incoming sword shadow and the mighty water sword force, Li Fuchen's expression changed slightly. This sword move was truly majestic, like a tidal wave, approaching from afar. If both parties had the same ability, they would definitely be subdued by the opponent's sword presence. Executing the second move of the Red Jade sword style, Kill of Red Jade, Li Fuchen forcefully countered his opponent's sword move. If the first move of the Red Jade sword style, Touch of Red Jade, was a sword that contained a suction force, the second move, Kill of Red Jade, was a sword that contained a release force. With the release of the sword force, the air surged and was accompanied by a short period of vacuum weightlessness. In midair, a huge ball of water swelled up and then exploded with a loud bang. Nieming felt as though he was struck by lightning, his body was sent flying backwards. Chapter 56. Nieming lost. This is unbelievable. This Li Fuchen can at least be ranked in the top 200 of the outer sect's top 500 disciples. It can only be higher. That's right, Nieming has the upper hand on the lake. Li Fuchen's ability is much higher than expected. The spectators were in a heated discussion. Li Fuchen, let me try you. Not far away from the crowd on the lake, a figure skimmed out. When he was about 4 to 5 meters away from Li Fuchen, he leapt up and swung his sword. This sword was like a flying dragon. The sword path was straight and unrestrained, domineering and unconstrained. Peak tier, yellow class sword art, soaring dragon sword style. It's Fang Liahai's number 3 of the 7 experts, Mei Ruolong. Ranked 198 among the top 500 disciples. Someone recognized the identity of the newcomer. With a swing of his wooden sword, Li Fuchen instantly blocked the opponent's sword. With a swing of his right arm, Mei Ruolong was involuntarily sent flying back. The sword has a suction force. What a cool sword move. Many cheered for Li Fuchen. Courting death. Mei Ruolong's face turned black. His opponent's timing was too perfect. Not a second too early or too late, it was just the right timing to block his attack. If not, that suction force wouldn't be able to do anything to him. Stepping on the lake water, Mei Ruolong flew out diagonally. As he neared Li Fuchen, the wooden sword in his hand trembled and formed 3 agile sword shadows that enveloped Li Fuchen. This move was called Triple Cloud Dragon Appearance, the second move of the soaring dragon sword style. A mere subcompletion, yellow class, peak tier sword art can't do anything to me. Li Fuchen's arm strength increased as he raised his wooden sword and cleaved down. Crackle crackle. The earth-shattering sword easily broke Mei Ruolong's Cloud Dragon's 3 appearances. You take a blade from me too. Li Fuchen took a big step forward and cleaved at Mei Ruolong again. The Xiao Shang sword style had a clean sword path and a domineering sword force. When executed by Li Fuchen, who had 5,000 kilograms of strength, it was like adding wings to a tiger and was unstoppable. Mei Ruolong didn't expect Li Fuchen's sword style to be so domineering and swift. He didn't even have time to dodge, and if he tried to block, he probably wouldn't be able to withstand the force. Insolent, go back. Right at this moment, another figure skimmed over and blocked in front of Mei Ruolong. With a slanted sword, he sealed Mei Ruolong's Xiaoshang sword style. The water in the lake exploded, and the splashes of water shot out in all directions like sharp arrows. Amidst the undulating waves, the distance between the two widened. Li Fuchen took a closer look and saw that the one who blocked his sword was a handsome youth. He wasn't tall or short, but he gave off a feeling of nobility and dominance. It's Fang Lihai. Everyone sucked in a cold breath. Fang Lihai, one of the outer sect's top 10 prodigies, ranked 12th in the top 500 disciples. He had a 4-star extraordinary bone frame and was also the young city lord of one of the main cities in the Zhanglan region, Shanghai City. He was doted on by everyone and had a prestigious status that wasn't inferior to the children of the inner sect elders. How strong is this Li Fuchen's ability? Not only did he defeat Nie Ming, but he also subtly suppressed Mei Ruolong. Even when facing Fang Lihai, he didn't seem to be at a disadvantage. Fang Lihai definitely didn't use his full strength. If not, Li Fuchen wouldn't be a match for him. That's true, Fang Lihai is ranked 12th in the outer sect. The difference between 12th and 200th place isn't on the same level, it is several levels apart. Outer sect top 500 disciples, each one was more insane than the other. But after the top 100, there wasn't much of a difference. If there was a difference of a few dozen ranks, only a fight would determine who was stronger and who was weaker. After all, winning or losing wasn't based on who had a better foundation, but rather on one's performance and combat ability. But it was a different story for the top 100. The top 100 were the true elite outer sect disciples. To be able to enter this list, every single one of them was at least at the peak of the Qi realm. Be it their foundation or combat ability, they were all top-notch. As for rank 12, it was an even higher level. Outer sect disciples of this level were undoubtedly the overlords of the Qi realm and had the ability to instantly kill others. It didn't matter if Fang Lihai used his full strength or not, everyone had a higher opinion of Li Fuchen. Had it been anyone else, Fang Lihai would have defeated them with a single blade. Stepping firmly on the surface of the lake, Fang Lihai raised an eyebrow. Your ability isn't bad, to actually be able to block 30% of my strength. You aren't bad either. Li Fuchen replied. Fang Lihai laughed. Am I saying you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth, or that you have no brain? Am I, Fang Lihai? What qualifications do you have to comment on? Li Fuchen laughed lightly. You may be strong, but you aren't the absolute strongest. I think you are just overconfident. Is that so? Fang Lihai grinned, his eyes flashing with a dangerous glow. Fang Lihai, the outer sect doesn't belong to you alone. Let's just forget about today's matter. Seeing as Li Fuchen and Fang Lihai were about to make a move, a righteous-looking youth walked over. Fang Lihai turned his head and spoke with a gloomy expression. Gao Chun, you want to meddle in this matter? Gao Changtian was also one of the 10 prodigies of the outer sect. He was a righteous person and wouldn't allow anyone to bully the weak, which was why he established a faction to protect the weak. Of course, Gao Changtian replied forcefully. Fang Lihai held back his anger. Gao Changtian, don't be so shameless. I didn't bother with you in the past, but if you dare to stop me today, I will make you pay. Gao Changtian stood with his hands behind his back. Then I would like to see how you are going to make me pay. Ever since the two entered the Zhanglan sect a few years ago, they couldn't see eye to eye. But their abilities were on par. One was ranked 12th and the other was ranked 10th. They were evenly matched and couldn't do anything to the other. Courting death. Fang Lihai was enraged. Revolving the 9th rank iron shell technique, a horrifying qi was emitted. At the same time, the wooden sword in his hand was covered with a layer of pale black qi. The qi's density and range far exceeded Nie Ming's and Mei Ruolong's. Afraid of you? Gao Changtian revolved the 9th rank Elder Jade technique as well. A towering qi presence was emitted and went against Fang Liahai's. The wooden sword in his hand was covered with a layer of green-white qi. Crackle! As the two qi presences clashed, a qi explosion could be heard in the air. So scary, is this the strength of a prodigy? A duel between two prodigies is a grand occasion in the outer sect. The last time it happened was about half a year ago. Everyone was in a heated discussion. Seeing the qi presences of the two, Li Fuchen's eyes were filled with battle intent. The two of them were indeed strong and had already cultivated their entry technique to the highest 9th rank. Even though the Tsang-Lan sect's entry technique was a peak-tier, yellow-class technique, but with enough time, it could still be cultivated to the highest rank. Of course, the prerequisite was that one had to have a 4-star bone frame. Anyone below the 4-star bone frame wouldn't be able to achieve this, even with the help of cultivation techniques and pills. Generally speaking, the cultivation of a technique was a step-by-step process. At the start, everyone would start with the foundation technique. Then it would be the family heirloom, yellow class, high-tier technique, followed by the sect's entry technique. With every change of technique, due to the accumulated experience and the number of open meridians, the cultivation speed would increase. If not, even if you were given a high-grade technique, you wouldn't be able to cultivate it. Chapter 57. In terms of cultivation level, Li Fuchen couldn't match up to them. In terms of technique rank, Li Fuchen couldn't match up to them either. But in terms of physical strength and defense, Li Fuchen was far superior to them. In the entire outer sect, other than Li Fuchen, there was only one outer sect disciple who cultivated the Crimson Battle form to the completion stage. Boom! Fang Lihai and Gao Changtian clashed. The violent qi force was like a thunderstorm, exploding in the air above the lake. Raging waves. It was the same raging wave sword style, but in the hands of Fang Lihai, it was at least twice as powerful as Nie Minglan's. With the sword's presence, all the water droplets on the surface of the lake were attracted towards it. Along with the sword force, the droplets turned into waves that rushed towards Gao Changtian. Cloud Sea Surge. Gao Changtian's flowing cloud sword style was similar to the raging wave sword style. One was a surging wave while the other was a surging cloud sea. In the hands of Gao Changtian, the intricacy of his sword style wasn't inferior to Fang Liahai's. With a single slash, the water droplets were attracted towards it, increasing the power of the sword style. Boom, boom, boom. The battle between the two prodigies was exceptionally intense, comparable to a battle between low-leveled Origin Realm martial artists. Both of you stop before you go too far. Do you think that Tsang-Lan sect's rules don't exist? Finally, the commotion on the lake attracted the attention of an outer sect elder. This outer sect elder was like a sharp arrow, piercing through the air. With a wave of his hand, a strong qi force separated the two of them. Elder. Fang Lihai and Gao Changtian greeted respectfully. Everyone disperse. What is the meaning of gathering together? The outer sect elder didn't intend to punish the two of them. In the Tsang-Lan sect, disciples were encouraged to fight amongst each other, as long as it wasn't too much. Just like that, the grand battle on the lake came to an end. But everyone knew that it wasn't over yet, it was just waiting for the day it would ferment. In the blink of an eye, Li Fuchen had been at the Tsang-Lan sect for 9 months. The Tsang-Lan sect's outer sect had a 3-story tower of tribulations. According to the sect rules, if a first-grade outer sect disciple didn't pass the first floor of the Tower of Tribulations, their first-grade outer sect disciple status would be revoked and they would be demoted to a second-grade outer sect disciple. If they could pass the first floor of the Tower of Tribulations within a year, no matter what status they had before, they would be promoted to a first-grade outer sect disciple. Other than the sect rules, the Tower of Trials was also where the outer sect disciples' rankings were determined. Passing the first level of the Tower of Trials means that you have the strength to rank within the top 5,000. Passing the second level of the Tower of Trials means that you have the strength to rank within the top 500. Passing the third level of the Tower of Trials means that you have the strength to be in the top 100. The time taken to clear the Tower of Trials would determine one's ranking. For example, If everyone had passed the third level of the Tower of Trials, and you were slower than others, your ranking would naturally be lower than others. This was also the reason why there wasn't much of a difference in strength, even though there was a difference of a few dozen ranks. This was also why there was such a huge gap between the top 100 and the top 100. Li Fuchen was afraid that he would forget to attempt the Tower of Tribulations and wanted to try it in advance to see what his ranking would be. The Tower of Trials was located in the depths of the Outer Sect district, and there were many Outer Sect disciples queuing up. One by one, ring the trial bell first. If you can't even ring the trial bell, then there's no need to attempt the trial tower. Outside the Tower of Trials that was tens of meters tall, a few Outer Sect deacons and a large group of Outer Sect deacon disciples were maintaining order. "Excuse me, let me go first." An Outer Sect disciple with a tyrannical chi pushed his way through the crowd and snatched the first position. The Outer Sect deacon disciples who were maintaining order pretended not to see anything, as they were already used to such incidents. This Outer Sect disciple was very strong. A simple punch from him was enough to ring the trial bell. "All right, you can go in now." The Outer Sect deacon waved his hand. After about a dozen breaths, the light on the first floor of the Tower of Tribulations was extinguished. This meant that this person had passed the first floor. 15 minutes later, the light on the second floor of the Tower of Tribulations was extinguished. Note it down, time used, 48 ticks. One of the Outer Sect deacons said to the deacon disciple who was recording the time. 48 ticks? Before coming, Li Fuchen did some research. The Tower of Tribulations used a water hourglass to measure time. An hour was divided into 360 ticks. 45 ticks represented 15 minutes. 48 ticks represented a little more than 15 minutes. Unlucky, didn't pass the third floor again. Soon enough, the Outer Sect disciple walked out with an unhappy expression. "Lu Deshang, your result is the second floor of the Tower of Tribulations. Time used, 48 ticks. Rank 250. The Outer Sect deacon disciple who spoke hung a wooden plaque with the name, Lu Deshang, on the stone wall. The stone wall was huge and was filled with wooden plaques, a total of 500 of them. Every wooden plaque had a name on it. Behind the wooden plaque, there was a smaller wooden plaque with the time written on it. 250 might not sound nice, but it is at least 10 ranks higher than the previous time. Lu Deshang's expression finally looked better. "All right, next." The Outer Sect deacon waved his hand and allowed Lu Deshang to leave. One by one, the Outer Sect disciples challenged the Tower of Tribulations. A small portion of them didn't even manage to ring the trial bell. Most of them only passed the first floor of the Tower of Tribulations, and only a few made it to the second floor. Arriving at the stone wall, Li Fuchen lifted his head to take a look. First place was Yuan Tian, third floor of the Tower of Tribulations, time used, 15 ticks. Second place was Shang Guanhong, third floor of the Tower of Tribulations, time used, 21 ticks. 10th place, Gao Chang Tian, third floor of the Tower of Tribulations, time used, 30 ticks. 12th place, Fang Laihai, third floor of the Tower of Tribulations, time used, 30 ticks. 366th place, Guan Shui, second floor of the Tower of Tribulations, time used, 60 ticks. Interesting. But the ranking of the Tower of Tribulations isn't very accurate. Li Fuchen was rather interested. Some were good at quick battles, while others were good at slow and steady battles. Some were good at offense, while others were good at defense. Some were good at burst strength, while others were good at endurance. The true ranking of ability was very complicated and required a 1v1 match. The ranking of the Tower of Tribulations could only be used as a reference, and it wasn't a very accurate reference. It fluctuated a lot. Buzz. Just as Li Fuchen was looking at the stone wall, the light from the third floor of the Tower of Tribulations suddenly extinguished. Someone passed the third floor of the Tower of Tribulations. Incredible! The crowd burst into an uproar. Those who were able to make it here were basically those who had the ability to enter the top 5,000. To them, the top 500 were already considered influential, while the top 100 were the influential of the influential. Every single one of them had a bright future ahead of them. Time used, 54 ticks, rank 59, not bad. The outer sect deacon smiled and said to those who came out. 1 hour later, it was Li Fuchen's turn. Ding. Li Fuchen rang the Tower of Tribulations bell without any mishaps. As this was Li Fuchen's first time attempting the Tower of Tribulations, he didn't have a wooden token. The outer sect deacons secretly circulated his qi and carved Li Fuchen's name on an empty wooden token. Let's go in. The outer sect deacon didn't have high expectations for Li Fuchen. For a first-time challenger like him, passing the first floor would be considered a great achievement. Very few could pass the second floor. Chapter 58. The Tower of Tribulations was dozens of meters tall and each floor was at least a dozen meters tall. Upon entering the first floor of the Tower of Tribulations, the floor, walls, and ceiling all had a layer of patterns. As the patterns lit up, a glowing demonic beast appeared in the center of the first floor. The Tower of Tribulations was actually a formation tower. There were countless of formation patterns that could absorb energy from the heaven and earth to maintain the formation. The energy beast formed by the formation rushed at Li Fuchen. From its speed, it wasn't any slower than a Class 1 high-tier demonic beast. Drawing the wooden sword, Li Fuchen turned and dodged the attack of the demonic beast while thrusting the wooden sword into its neck. He passed the first floor in such a short amount of time. Outside the Tower of Tribulations, everyone was shocked. The faster one passed the first floor of the Tower of Tribulations, the stronger one's ability was. I have underestimated him. The leader of the outer sect deacons nodded. Arriving at the second floor of the Tower of Tribulations, the formation lit up and an even stronger energy beast rushed at Li Fuchen. When the sword slashed on the energy demonic beast, Li Fuchen found that this domineering sword actually only made the other party's body dim a little. Soon enough, with the support of the formation, the energy beast's body lit up again. Seems like I have to attack the weak spot. Li Fuchen was just testing the waters and slashed at the head of the beast, which was the toughest spot. After a few rounds, Li Fuchen thrusted his sword into the beast's neck. The energy beast exploded and dissipated into formless heaven and earth energy. He only took 12 ticks to pass the second floor. There shouldn't be any suspense in passing the third floor. The outside world was in an uproar again. The key is, how long does he need to pass the third floor of the Tower of Tribulations? I am guessing it should be within 60 ticks. Isn't that too little? I'm guessing 90 ticks. Everyone was in a heated discussion and expressed their opinions. Third floor of the Tower of Tribulations, Li Fuchen could feel that the formation patterns here were the strongest and the energy was the densest. A giant Yuan Qi wolf was formed. Its 2 eyeballs were like 2 glowing gems. So fast. The energy giant wolf's speed was too fast. With a flash, its claws were like 5 sharp knives, clawing at Li Fuchen's face. Li Fuchen quickly dodged and didn't have time to counterattack. After fighting for a dozen rounds, Li Fuchen's sword struck the weak spot of the energy giant wolf. What surprised Li Fuchen was that this sword didn't defeat the energy giant wolf, but it dimmed the energy giant wolf's figure. With the support of the array, it gradually brightened. So that's how it is. The third layer's Yuan Qi demonic beast's defense is extremely strong. Even if I hit its weak spot, I won't be able to destroy it in one strike. Unless my attack power reaches an extremely high level. However, the Yuan Qi demonic beast's recovery will be much slower when its weak spot is hit. It won't recover immediately. The outside world. The water had already flowed to the 45th level. 46 ticks. 47 ticks. 50 ticks. Time passed slowly, but the third level of the Tower of Trials was still lit up. The attacks of the Yuan Qi monster beasts condensed by the formation were not profound, but they were extremely fast. Moreover, they could only defeat them by continuously attacking the weak points. As for the other areas, no matter how many times they attacked, it would be useless. After spending some time, Li Fuchen finally grasped the pattern of the energy beasts. He could predict their movements in advance and finish them off with 4 consecutive blades. With the formation extinguished, Li Fuchen walked out of the Tower of Tribulations. 54 ticks, rank 60. The leader of the outer sect deacon smiled. 54 ticks, huh? Li Fuchen wasn't too surprised. At the current stage, his ability was slightly inferior to Fang Laihai and Gao Changtian. The two of them had a higher cultivation technique rank than him, 2 levels of cultivation, and a decent body refinement rank. Their basic ability was much better than Li Fuchen's. But Li Fuchen had his own advantage too, which was his tough physical defense. If he were to fight head-on, Li Fuchen might not lose to Fang Laihai and Gao Changtian. On the stone wall, Li Fuchen's wooden token was hung at the 60th position. This was an incomparably glorious position. So he is Li Fuchen. He is actually so strong. Among the crowd, more than half of them had heard of the name Li Fuchen. What a ferocious individual. This rate of improvement is comparable to the 10 prodigies. Speaking of which, I am curious. Since his rate of improvement is so fast, why wasn't he selected as a prodigy? You don't know about this, right? Li Fuchen is just a normal bone frame. A normal bone frame, no matter how good his perception is not worthy of being a prodigy. Tiskhe, in the history of the Zhonglan sect, there has never been a normal bone frame with such a high perception right. After knowing that Li Fuchen was just a normal bone frame, those who didn't know were even more shocked. In just a few days, the news of Li Fuchen obtaining the 60th rank of the Tower of Tribulations was spread throughout the outer sect. Even though the Tower of Tribulations ranking didn't mean anything, it at least meant that Li Fuchen's ability was within the top 100. This was without a doubt. Even though I don't need any contribution points now, but in the future, I will need at least 10 or even 100 times more. If I don't accumulate some contribution points, I will have to struggle for a long time in the future. In the sect, one could never have too many contribution points. Redeeming a peak tier, yellow class martial arts manual required at least 1,000 contribution points. Redeeming a mystic class, low tier martial arts manual required at least 10,000 contribution points. Mid-tier, mystic class, martial arts manuals required at least 30,000 contribution points. A mid-tier, yellow class pill was worth a few hundred contribution points. A high-tier, yellow class pill was worth 1,000 contribution points. A peak-tier, yellow class pill was worth a few thousand contribution points. As for a low-tier, mystic class pill, even the upper echelons of the sect cared about it and was worth tens of thousands of contribution points. Other than that, treasured swords and armors all required contribution points to redeem. Even if he didn't need it now, it didn't mean he wouldn't need it in the future. If he waited until he truly needed a large amount of contribution points to earn, it would be a waste of time. After pondering for an entire night, Li Fuchen decided to try his luck at the ore mines. Compared to searching for ores in the ore mines, fishing for treasure fish was much more stable. With Li Fuchen's ability, he would be able to earn tens of thousands of contribution points every month. Ore mines depended on luck. If he was lucky, he might be able to earn tens of thousands of contribution points in one go. If he wasn't, it was common for him to earn tens or hundreds of contribution points in a month. Li Fuchen felt that his luck was great. If not, he wouldn't have been able to find so many snow-silver ores at once. What Li Fuchen didn't know was that during the few days he was searching for ores in the ore mines, Guanshui also attempted the Tower of Tribulations. Rank 198. Even though this rank wasn't as high as Li Fuchen's, but in terms of improvement speed, she was one of the top 10 prodigies. Unknowingly, the news that Guanshui and Li Fuchen came from the same city had unknowingly spread. This attracted the attention and alertness of others. Half a month later, Li Fuchen had no results. He had to admit he was really lucky the last time. It was already difficult to find a large, yellow class, low-tier or in the ore mines, not to mention mid-tier or high-tier ores. With no other choice, Li Fuchen headed to Zhonglan Lake and began his life as a fisherman. At the same time, as his Scarlet Fire Technique's 8th rank technique intent stabilized, Li Fuchen decided to consume the Scarlet Fire Pill. With the Scarlet Fire intent from the Scarlet Fire Pill, it shouldn't be hard to break through to the 9th rank. Chapter 59. Blaze. in a room with a skylight. Under the sunlight, Li Fuchen was like a flaming man, emitting a blazing and ferocious qi. Gradually, a blazing red flower appeared on top of Li Fuchen's head. Sparks converged. Scarlet Fire Technique 9th rank phenomenon. And at this moment, Li Fuchen's cultivation, under the stimulation of the 9th rank Scarlet Fire Technique, naturally broke through to the 8th level of the Qi realm. At this moment, Li Fuchen felt like his body was a volcano that was about to erupt, with nowhere to vent his immense strength. With a loud roar, Li Fuchen punched at the wall of the room. A few cracks appeared on the sturdy wall of the room. From a few meters away, the wind generated from his fist could cause cracks on the wall. The strength of Li Fuchen's qi was obvious. Is this the 9th rank of the Scarlet Fire Technique? If the 8th rank of the Scarlet Fire Technique was an ordinary furnace, then the 9th rank of the Scarlet Fire Technique would be a blazing furnace with a lot of fuel. It would constantly emit heat, and with a slight circulation of true qi, the Scarlet Fire true qi would spurt out, burning and devouring everything. Scooping up a first-tier treasure fish from the pond, Li Fuchen opened his palm and a dense Scarlet Fire qi gushed out. In just a short moment, the first-tier treasure fish was cooked. Now that I have cultivated a blazing heat technique, I won't have to worry about a fire source in the wild. Li Fuchen laughed, feeling rather good. Even though the life of fishing was peaceful, the 15-year-old Li Fuchen enjoyed this rare peace. The big fish. Attaching his consciousness to the hook, Li Fuchen looked through the water and saw a 2-meter-long red treasure fish swimming a dozen meters away. It's a normal treasure fish, rainbow fish. Looking at its size, it's at least a few hundred kilos. Li Fuchen was speechless. A normal treasure fish was worth 10 contribution points per kilo. A few hundred kilos would be a few thousand points, a huge fortune. But it was too big, carrying it back would be troublesome. Forget it, let's fish it up first. Li Fuchen moved the hook to the mouth of the rainbow fish. The rainbow fish was just a normal treasure fish. It loved first-tier bait and swallowed it in a few bites. The pity, after swallowing it, it would be hard to spit it out. Li Fuchen exerted strength on his arm, straightened the line and hooked the rainbow fish's mouth. Voila! The waves on the lake rose and fell, and one wave after another soared into the sky. What a big treasure fish, at least a few hundred pounds. No wonder he is the fishing king, Li Fuchen. Unknowingly, Li Fuchen gained the nickname of Fishing King. On the fishing platform, everyone was in a heated discussion. Li Fuchen didn't clash head-on with the heaven rainbow fish. This sky rainbow fish seemed to weigh a few hundred kilograms and had a physical strength of close to 10,000 kilograms. Li Fuchen's qi burst and physical strength was only around 10,000 kilograms. Furthermore, he could not use martial arts while fishing. He could only rely on his basic explosive strength to resist. Tense for a while, relax for a while. Li Fuchen was slowly exhausting the heaven rainbow fish's energy. When Li Fuchen felt that the heaven rainbow fish was only left with half of its strength, he exerted himself and pulled the heaven rainbow fish out of the water. Senior brother Li, you're really lucky. The outer sect disciples at the side congratulated. Don't be envious. Before I leave, I will gift you a few treasure fish. Li Fuchen had a good impression of this average-looking outer sect disciple. His name was Zhang. He was originally a servant disciple, but with his own hard work, he was promoted to a third-class outer sect disciple. Only 1 out of 100 disciples would be promoted from an odd-job disciple to an outer sect disciple. Normally, these people were extremely hardworking and had willpower that surpassed the average person. Since he met one, Li Fuchen didn't mind helping him out. Anyway, a few treasure fish wasn't much to the current Li Fuchen. Really? Zhang Dafu's eyes lit up. The treasure fish that Li Fuchen caught weren't those 1 or 2 kilograms normal treasure fish. They were either a few dozen kg normal treasure fish, or 7 or 8 kilograms first-tier treasure fish. Sometimes they could even catch second-tier treasure fish. Not to mention first-tier or second-tier treasure fish, just a few normal treasure fish that weighed a few dozen kg would be worth at least 1,000 contribution points. Not sure if it was the luck of the ore mines that was transferred to fishing. The next day, Li Fuchen found a 100 kilograms first-tier treasure fish and caught it. As such, Li Fuchen's earnings from this trip was at least 20,000 to 30,000 contribution points, which was more than double of what he expected. Calling upon Zhang Defu and a more honest-looking outer sect disciple, Li Fuchen transported the treasure fish back to the Zhanglan sect. Before entering the mission hall, Li Fuchen gave each of them 1,000 plus points of treasure fish, making it worthwhile for them to make the trip. 24,000 contribution points, in addition to the remaining 15,500 points, I can redeem a Mystic class, mid-tier martial arts manual. Taking a deep breath, Li Fuchen arrived at the martial arts hall and prepared to receive his cultivation technique reward. The martial arts hall's elder had some impression of Li Fuchen and thought that Li Fuchen was here to redeem martial arts manuals again. "Elder, I would like to receive my cultivation technique reward." Li Fuchen replied. "Oh, which rank are you at? 7th rank or 8th rank?" The martial arts elder laughed. Li Fuchen replied, "Scarlet Fire Technique, 9th rank." "What? Are you sure you have cultivated the Scarlet Fire Technique to the 9th rank?" The martial arts elder was stunned for a moment, but after regaining his senses, he had an interesting expression. Even with the help of the cultivation pill, but to reach the highest 9th rank of the entry technique within a year was still an extremely difficult task. Among the 30,000 outer sect disciples, only one managed to do so, and that was the top 10 prodigies, Yuan Tian. Trying his best to control his emotions, the martial arts elder extended his hand and said, "Revolve the Scarlet Fire Technique first, let me confirm." To be honest, he still didn't believe that Li Fuchen had cultivated the Scarlet Fire Technique to the 9th rank. Only by seeing it with his own eyes would he believe it. Hearing the elder's words, Li Fuchen used his mind and revolved the 9th rank Scarlet Fire Technique. With Li Fuchen as the center, a surging heat spread out in all directions, just like a furnace. It is indeed the 9th rank Scarlet Fire Technique. The martial arts elder's eyes widened. "Elder, is the reward 100,000 contribution points?" Li Fuchen asked to confirm. The martial arts elder laughed. "Of course, it won't be any less for you." Immediately, the martial arts elder registered Li Fuchen's information and added 100,000 contribution points to Li Fuchen under the contribution points column. "All right, since you have already cultivated the Scarlet Fire Technique to the 9th rank, I will issue you a glory token. With this glory token, you can redeem a Mystic class technique in the inner sect." The martial arts elder reminded Li Fuchen. "I can redeem Mystic class techniques?" This was definitely an unexpected surprise. Even the usually indifferent Li Fuchen couldn't help but reveal a joyous expression. Naturally, the martial arts elder had high hopes for Li Fuchen. In his opinion, a normal bone frame limited Li Fuchen's potential. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.